Hello, church. I think this is gonna work. I've been trying for the past hour and a half, almost 2 hours, to get connected, and so I am so sorry that it's this late. But I'm excited to be able to talk to y'all and show you a little bit about my family. So I am here at my mama's house, and you can see Isabella there. Hey, Isabella. Say hello, church. There's Amanda with Emma. Say hello. And there is Mother. Mama. Saluda a la iglesia.
Hi.
And
Bless
she
you.
has prepared a few fruits and some food. And we're fixing to have supper over here. So I was going to do a little bit of singing, and I had this big talk about courage and all that, but it got a little trumped by the joys of the, connections and things like that. But I do still want to talk to you real quick. With the times that we are in, and there's so much talk about all of the problems and the whatnots and the what ifs, one thing that keeps lingering in our lives is fear. And I think it's a good time to remind church, or remind ourselves of one thing that the Bible talks quite a bit about. Not just the trust in God and faith, but it also talks a lot about courage. If there's two characters in the scriptures that are basically my favorites. I got Joshua, and he was a young guy that followed big shot Moses up and down the mountains. He followed him up and down the desert. And Joshua, when Moses died, the words of God are, "Be strong and courageous." Strong and courageous. And then you fast forward this several thousand years later to another one of my favorite characters in the Bible, Timothy. And his mentor, the Apostle Paul, tells him in another way something very similar, but he uses another characteristic to express it. He says, "For God has," in 2 Timothy chapter 1:7, it says, "God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, of power, and of sound mind," or self-control. And as we're talking about fear and I was talking about courage, I want you to realize a couple of things. There's a direct correlation between what we have been taught for a whole generation, such an important thing, which is self-esteem. We focus so much on self-esteem, and we have such a big deal on finding our identity, and we look for our position in society. We look for our position in social media. We're always trying to find what our true self is, or how does that really look like, and we have a hard time finding out ourselves. And wonder though, what if instead of focusing on self-esteem, we actually focus on self-control, which is really what's going to lead us to that power to be able to have courage. Courage is not the lack of fear. Courage is acting in spite of how we feel about the situation. Brother Joe preached on a sermon about this not long ago, and I encourage you to go back and look at it and listen to it. It's very true that when we are afraid and we act on our responsibility, even though we're scared, that is what we're demonstrating as courage. When God spoke to Joshua about being courageous, he was commanding him to take the leadership of a people that was scattered, a people that didn't know how to follow God, a people who didn't really know God in an intimate way, and he led them, and one of the first things that he led them into was a very courageous act, which was to take over the town of Jericho. To me, it's important to notice that when they go into Jericho, they didn't really go into with a big battle at first. The first thing that they do is they walk around the city and they sound the musical instruments, the trumpets. And at the very end of it, all of this marching, the people of God cry out. They give a shout. So as you're going about your life and you're thinking about courage, I'm going to encourage you, go into worship. Find a way to worship God in your life. What is the song that's in your heart? What is the music that God has put in your life? That's going to give you some plays into courage. And it's going to also lead you with this spirit that God has given you, which is self-control. According to Paul telling Timothy, it's not about finding who you are that's going to keep you from finding your true self, or it's going to lead you into finding who your true self is, and having the power of doing everything that you ever dream of. Actually, what's going to lead you into finding who you truly are is finding your place in the family of God. And if you have a place in the family of God, you have everything that you need. The promise is that He is our good shepherd, leading us into still waters and promising us, He promises to give us everything that we need, to the point that we don't lack anything. So, number one, courage is not the lack of fear, but taking on the responsibility of doing it in spite of our fear. And self-esteem is not as important as self-control. So if you look at our whole generation, we don't have control. We are so indulgent, and we encourage these self-indulgences. No wonder we are so afraid when troubles come. When the problems of life hit us so hard, we don't have a clue how to act with our money or lack of it, with societal problems. When somebody comes in and hits us in the face with a very difficult question. I remember talking to somebody about, how do you answer hard questions to children? How do you tell kids about where does God come from? When they don't want to pray and talk to God because whatever, they're scared or they don't see Him. What about kids going to college and they are faced with these tough questions about reliability and Bible and theology and eschatology, blah, 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 blah. They don't have the self-control to dominate themselves and find out refuge in their trust of God. If they have peace with God, that can only come through being able to have self-control. So anyways, I encourage you, and one of the I think that one of the doors into self-control is worship. So I encourage you today, find a way to worship God, whether if it's through music, whether if it's maybe you have art, maybe you're not an artsy person, maybe you are a very logical and into straightforward things, and figure out, don't make those things that you do every day go to waste. If you're a farmer, then while you're farming, ask God right there, what are you telling me, Lord? How can I worship you right now as I'm planting or cutting or baling hay, or as I'm taking this cow to the market? God, how can I worship you in what I'm doing right now? That's going to lead us to courage. And I assure you, that's going to lead us into the presence of God, where we'll find our own place. So anyways, I hope that you have enjoyed a little bit of that word. And now it's time for me to go enjoy some of that cooking that Mother has over there. And I will be with you tomorrow.